You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. Today's conversation is about what happens when a patient-centered mission meets the realities of research, funding, intellectual property, and commercialization. My guest is Michelle Durborow, Head of Research Operations at the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, where she oversees the operational strategy and execution of the Foundation's research funding programs. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you.
Well, I'm really excited to have you here, and we're excited to have you at the Autumn Annual Meeting. And I thought I would kick this podcast off by asking you, a lot of our listeners are familiar with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, but maybe for those who aren't really that familiar with it, can you share the Foundation's mission and what drives the work?
Yes. In 2000, Michael J. Fox, actor, stepped away from his acting career to fill a critical void in Parkinson's research. Through those years, he has led a patient-centered mission to bring urgency and innovation to the field through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Our mission is simple. We want to eliminate Parkinson's disease in our lifetime. And we pursue this through an aggressively funded research agenda towards a cure. But we are also cognizant that while we're doing that, we have to make sure that people living with Parkinson's have better treatments today, not someday.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that Michael J. Fox has done is he's been very open about his Parkinson's, and we've seen over time how it has progressed, which I think has been really eye-opening to a lot of people. And speaking of patients like Michael J. Fox, from their standpoint, how do you think about tech transfer in the context of eliminating Parkinson's disease?
From a patient-centered perspective, technology transfer is how scientific discoveries become practical applications. People living with Parkinson's don't benefit from ideas alone. They benefit when the promising science moves out of the lab and into the hands of partners who can scale them into therapies, diagnostics, and that's why we know the importance of partnering with technology transfers. And as the foundation invests heavily in early high-risk research, we use technology transfer to keep those discoveries from stalling. That model helps shorten the timelines, de-risk the innovation, and attract the right collaborators. Because we believe that to cure Parkinson's, it takes all of us, everyone, every player in the space to do that.
Absolutely. And when you're evaluating some of these research proposals that you're getting, how early in this process are you starting to think about translation?
We think about translation at the outset, right when we first review a proposal. Even for early stage science, we ask what the work will enable next in the PD therapeutic development pipeline, what key decisions it will inform, what risk it will retire. For some projects, that next decision might be more about a target validation or what data would justify moving a program forward. For others, it's about whether there's a credible biomarker or patient stratification angle that will matter. We calibrate our expectations because we know not every project is the same. There's different stages and we fund anywhere from discovery to clinical development. But we don't wait or to pressure test that translation line of sight. We looked at the feasibility and the milestones, and we work closely with the investigators. In some case, figure out, does this matter now or does this matter later? And where can we find that fine?
Yeah, it sounds like you are obviously very driven to try and find a cure sooner rather than later. And, one of the persistent narratives that relates to not only Parkinson's, but other medical research is that IP actually slows the research. But it's interesting to me that your model suggests something much more nuanced. How do you think about IP in advancing early stage innovation?
We think about IP not as a barrier to innovation. We think about IP as the big bridge, right? That between discovery and practical application. We all know that everyone have their goals. Every player has different goals. They optimize for those goals, and they also have barriers that they are thinking about. And at MJFF, we see IP as the currency that allows those discoveries to move forward, not something that slows progress. So when investigators are ready to file for those IP, they get the credit, they get the ownership, and a clear runway to develop their technology responsibly. Patents are not about blocking others. They are about protecting an invention, so it can be evaluated, invested in, and ultimately used. Our job in research is to remove friction that comes with patent filing or with patent negotiation or the use of it in research by making sure that data are shared when they are ready to be shared, embargoed when they need to be temporarily embargoed, or protected when it's about time to actually turn that idea into a practical application. So we're very pragmatic with our approach, and by us not owning the IP, we're one less entity that everyone should thinking about. They can think about us as their partners in making sure that there is credible information to validate their inventions.
And I think that goes back to something you said earlier about moving quickly, because a lot of times where negotiations break down is over IP and who's going to own what IP. If I supplied the money or the samples, I own this, I own that. And sometimes that can take months, even a year to work through. But the fact that you're not taking an ownership interest in any of the IP that you fund, eliminates, like you said, that friction. So given that you've eliminated that friction, I'm curious, where do you see frictions arise?
I think the friction, you just, like you mentioned, the friction arise when there is no alignment of incentives, when there is no alignment early on in terms of what each player actually wants to get out of the project. So where when we see those friction as a neutral convener, when you bring everyone to the table and understand each other's risk and motivations, we are all working through the same challenges and we're working towards a common goal. And that's where friction gets lesser.
So did the fact that this model work surprise you? Because to be honest, I haven't heard of this model too often. So I'm curious, based on your experience, what you've seen with it.
Maybe from a business side, it did surprise me that why not, right? Why we're providing a lot of funding. Why not? But then I come to the understanding that we are a public charity. We are funding science for the benefit of people with Parkinson's disease, and it's not our expertise to actually do IP. And by removing ourselves in that process, but supporting how to get there, then we're reducing a lot of the friction and we're removing the barriers to entry. We're lowering those barriers. And the development of those therapies gets faster in many ways because the partners are realizing that it is going to be what gives them the confidence to do that, because Michael J. Fast Foundation is not going to take equity or take ownership or control for IP.
So, Michelle, you've said that patents don't kill research, but bottlenecks do. Can you unpack that distinction a little bit for us?
I think when people say patents kill research, they're referring to the friction that happens during those negotiations. And for most of us who've done this work, we know that those frictions do exist, and sometimes those are the bottlenecks that actually get us from one point to another. A patent at its core is meant to protect a specific innovation. So someone, often a company, has the confidence to invest and carry it through that very long and expensive development path. And that protection can actually be what turns a promising idea into something real for patients. What slows the science is when access to the building blocks gets tangled. Months of negotiating MTAs or data use agreements, unclear or restricted terms, exclusivity placed too early on research tools, or fragmented ownership where you need permission from multiple parties just to start. And often the scientists are the ones who are doing it. And just like me, I'm not the expert. You need to bring the experts in the room to actually manage those. And those are the bottlenecks that I'm talking about that actually slows down research and probably that path from a discovery to a commercialization.
Now, I know you're involved in evolving your model further by bringing TTOs in earlier through various initiatives like LITE. Why involve TTOs at the ground floor instead of later in the process?
Yeah, we believe that in order for us to succeed in our mission, we need to bring every player across the R&D pipeline, and that includes the technology transfer offices of universities. And we don't want to engage when the science is mature because that can feel very transactional. It could feel very rushed, and probably it's not going to be a thoughtful agreement in the end. So we want to bring tech transfer professionals at an early stage so that engagement, we build that relationship, and that engagement turns into more productive and creative discussion. In our program that you've mentioned, which is the LIRC to Investigative Therapeutics Exchange, the aim of that program is to actually accelerate the development of LIRC to targeted treatments and reliable biomarkers by enabling real-time sharing of data, tools, and discoveries across the academic, industry, clinical teams. That's a lot of players. And if we don't think about the sharing model earlier, and also the IP strategy around it, then we're probably going to encounter a lot of bottlenecks down the line. And the people who are actually doing this, they need that back-end infrastructure. And that is where we want to make sure that we are deeply engaging the tech transfer offices. That collaboration, I believe, will speed up, and it aligns with our goals of acceleration.
So essentially, this earlier alignment has helped you, like you said, speed things up. Anything else that it's helped you anticipate?
Our funding model actually is very clear about not claiming IP. We are also very clear that in every funding that we give, every grant includes a clear guidelines in terms of sharing tools and data and resources. But we want to make sure that that sharing is not for the sake of just sharing, but it's a thoughtful process, because we know that everybody, scientists, industry, we all have something that we want to achieve in that project, and so we want to make sure that those are articulated clearly and that everyone has a shared commitment to it.
Now, MJFF manages relationships across academia, biotech, CROs, and large partners. Are there some lessons you've learned about keeping all those different entities and collaborations moving smoothly? That's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of people, a lot of moving parts.
A lot of people, a lot of moving parts.
Collaboration, actually, for me, it goes beyond good intentions, right? While, of course, we should all come to the table with good intentions. But what makes it run smoothly is that if we are making it easy for the right people to work together. So to keep things running smoothly, it's very important to build relationships and align early on a common goal. Because when we do that, it leads to a more natural and creative negotiations. Also, keep the scientists doing the science, and keep the business strategists doing the business. So if we are doing that, then we're running the science and the deal mechanics in parallel. And if people know what their roles are and those are well defined, then everyone can stay focused on their lanes. And so those are things that we think is what makes a good collaboration structured well. And one thing that we also do in the collaboration is, so that we could be more efficient and effective, is that we use very straightforward and repeatable methods, especially for sharing information or for structuring agreements, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. And that reduces the friction and the bottlenecks a little bit. And since each party has different goals and risks, we take a very practical approach to reach an agreement, so that we keep the patients top of mind when we do this, right? We all do this for the benefit of the patients, and that is kind of like the ultimate goal. And I think people will do that because they care about the community that we are doing this for.
Yeah, I think there is that common purpose, right? Everybody's looking to do for the patient. And then there's also the fact that with all these different collaborators and partners, that there's got to be a certain amount of trust as well. So what does that trust look like in practice with all these different pieces and all these different parties?
I believe that trust is earned, and trust comes from being transparent about the incentives. We all have reason to do this. We all have incentives. Whatever that incentive is, it's important to come to the table with first that good intention, and assume everybody have good intentions, and understand where everybody is coming from and what are their goals, what are the risks that they are managing. When we talk about that, we build trust. When I started the foundation, I clearly remember one advice, or not an advice, but a quote from Michael that he said, purity of motives. And that was always what I'm thinking when I come to the table. Our ultimate motive is to bring solutions to treatments to patients. And that's the only motive that should exist. And that brings trust.
That's a beautiful way of saying it, purity of motives. If everyone adopted that approach, I think as a society, we'd be so much better off. So I really think that is really beautiful to say. You're also working on a ton of initiatives, things like Aligning Science Across Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative, targets to therapies, as well as platform trials. In your opinion, where do you think the tech transfer community can meaningfully contribute?
Those initiatives are large global consortia, and they have very ambitious goals and tight timelines. And as we know, there will be many players, many stakeholders that needs to be engaged in the process. And that is where the tech transfer community can help us by engaging early to address potential bottlenecks, advise us on IP and licensing. Maybe our partners do need a lot of guidance and advice on that, and also for us how to navigate those, and also help us with shaping the sharing models, because we believe that research speed and integrity comes from openness, and that our mandate is to actually share the results of our funded research, and so tech transfer professionals can help us shape those models. And I hope that anyone who's working in space can actually find ways to collaborate with investigators at an early process. Ultimately, if all of these pieces come together, then we all get to where we need to go.
I definitely agree. And is there some opportunity for members who might be listening today to get more involved?
We are now piloting in our LIRC2 Investigative Therapeutics Exchange, or the LITE consortium, a new way to partner with technology transfer offices. The way that we're thinking about it is that we bring them earlier in the process rather than leaving them after the science is mature. We want the tech transfer offices to be in lockstep with the science, with the research as it emerges, so that they are part of shaping it. And in future meetings, we want to deeply engage with everyone so they can share their expertise with us to help us anticipate any IP, partnership, and commercialization challenges before they become bottlenecks.
So, Michelle, many of our listeners started close to science and have moved into operations or business. Share with us, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about your own journey and how you ended up at MJFF.
I started close to the science. I've worked in pharma, in labs, and research organizations, and I love that work. Over time, I kept noticing that promising ideas get stalled. But that's not because the science is not good, but sometimes it's because the systems around it are not built to move them effectively. And that's what pulled me towards the business and operations side. I love figuring out how decisions are made, how partnerships work, how to remove friction without rigor. It's just a different way of thinking, but the same goal as what the science actually wants to accomplish. So when I joined the Michael J. Fox Foundation, it felt all those threads just kind of came together. Dream job, I would say. My role now is to build frameworks that let scientists do their best work. Make it easy for our partners to engage with us. And of course, the big shift is that now we're keeping the patient impact as kind of like the center of every decision. I think that's not really stepping away from science, but actually doing the best I can to enable great science to deliver on our mission. I like to think about my role as kind of like the air traffic controller.
Oh, that's a really good way of explaining it. You've got all these different projects and collaborators and things up in the air, kind of like airplanes, and you're making sure that nobody crashes into one another and everybody lands safely.
Yes, exactly. Everybody leaves on time. Everybody arrives on time, and all the planes are going in their where they're heading and
the right direction.
And everyone else is able to do their job when everything is fine and nothing is wrong. I did my job. That's how I think about it.
That's a really good way of looking at it. I mean, your job is incredibly important, obviously, and you're managing all these different collaborators and projects and things like that. What keeps you motivated day in and day out?
I am very fortunate to be in this job that I have right now. The Fox Foundation has given me this opportunity where I see tangible impact on my work. The mission of advancing science and improving patients' lives is what motivates me to wake up each day and do it all over again. Knowing that my efforts can accelerate solutions and that people who urgently needs this are the ones that I have in mind every day. And it keeps me staying engaged and strive for that meaningful progress. When I interviewed for the foundation and they asked me why I would like to be considered for the role, the one thing that I have in mind was I want to be part of something greater than myself.
Yeah. Thank you. That's beautiful. And thank you for the work you do. And I do want to ask you for listeners who may have been personally affected by Parkinson's, what resources do you think that they should know about?
We have a vast range of resources and support to help navigate Parkinson's at every point of anyone's journey. We have guides, webinars, podcasts, news, R&D updates, and advocacy materials. There are also plenty of opportunities to connect with others and learn from their lived experience through the Buddy Network and the Parkinson's IQ plus U events. These are happening nationwide. And for those who are supporting loved ones with our Care Partner Guide is coming out soon. I'm excited to share that with everyone. For more information about all these resources and support, people can visit michaeljfox.org.
Now, Michelle, if I were to bring you back in 5 years and we were doing an update on this podcast, what would you hope will have changed in Parkinson's research and care?
In 5 years, I hope Parkinson's care looks far more like precision medicine. We may not have it fully realized in 5 years, but I'm pretty confident that we will be well on our way. With all the advances in understanding the biology of Parkinson's, the era of treating everyone the same is changing. What we see in one person is different from another. And that is why this goal is very important. We have a saying in the Parkinson's community that if you've seen one Parkinson's patient, you've seen one Parkinson's patient. Because it doesn't look the same for everyone. And so I'm hoping that with all the investments and learnings that we are getting now or working now, we will have a better understanding of the different subtypes, what treatments is right for the right person, and how to use biomarkers to track whether treatments are working or not. So I'm hoping that in 5 years, I'm going to tell you, yes, we're there now.
I'm counting on it.
I'm very optimistic. That's where we're heading.
That's really wonderful to hear. And it's because of you and people at the MJFF that, hopefully in 5 years, we'll be having that conversation. So, Michelle, as the podcast comes to a close, I wanted to ask you if you could leave the leaders of the innovation and commercialization community with one message, what would that be?
I'll borrow a line from someone living with Parkinson's who once said, "Be brilliant urgently." Parkinson's is solvable, but only if we choose to move faster together. I encourage everyone in this field to bring your best ideas early and keep people with Parkinson's at the center of every decision. Because when we do that, we're not just advancing science, we're truly changing lives.
Michelle, I can't add anything better to that. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing all that you're doing at MJFF. Thank you for all the incredible work you and your colleagues are doing. Michelle, thank you. This conversation is a great reminder that behind every grant, patent filing, and licensing discussion, people and families are waiting for progress. This is exactly the kind of ecosystem that depends on tech transfer professionals being in the room early, shaping how discoveries become solutions. We'll share the links in the show notes to the Michael J. Fox Foundation and the initiatives we discussed today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a colleague and consider how your work might intersect with Parkinson's research in the years ahead. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at autm.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.